She walked in with a mop. By the end of the week, 3 senior managers were gone. Marissa James never imagined she'd find herself pushing a mop bucket through the hallways of a tech company at age 62. But there she was, her gray braids tucked under a plain navy cap, her name tag reading Marie, and a cleaning cart squeaking in rhythm as she walked. She wasn't doing this for money. Marissa was on a mission to help her daughter uncover the truth. Her daughter, Alana James, was the brilliant mind behind Oratech Solutions, a rising tech giant in Atlanta. A Black-owned and woman-led software firm that had exploded in growth over the last 3 years. Oratech employed more than 300 staff members. The company prided itself on values like inclusion, respect, and ethical culture, but rumors had started to surface. Whispers from the lower rungs of the corporate ladder. Janitors, kitchen staff, and nighttime security guards reported instances of discrimination, condescension, even verbal abuse from higher-ups. Yet, when Alana asked HR to investigate, the response was always the same. Nothing unusual found. Culture metrics are stable. Anonymous reports, inconclusive. Alana trusted her team, but she trusted her gut more. And her gut said something was off. One night, over dinner, Alana vented her frustration to Marissa. "I built this company on fairness, Mom. But what if? What if I'm blind to what's really happening?" Marissa stirred her tea. "Then maybe it's time someone opened their eyes from the inside." Alana looked up. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Marissa said, smiling slyly, "let me go in. As a cleaner. No one knows me here. I'll observe, listen, and tell you what's really going on." With help from Alana's assistant, Marissa was quietly added to the evening cleaning crew as a part-time contractor. A fake resume was prepared, along with a new name, Marie Taylor. She started her first shift on a Monday evening. Dressed in navy blue overalls, gloves, and soft-soled sneakers, she was nearly invisible among the humming printers, flickering monitors, and weary tech employees working overtime. Most people didn't look twice at her. Some gave her a polite nod. Others didn't acknowledge her presence at all. And then, there were the few who made her skin crawl. On her second night, Marissa entered a glass-walled conference room to clean. Inside, a junior developer named Brad was eating sushi, earbuds in. She smiled softly and began tidying the table. Brad looked up, rolled his eyes, and said loudly, "Hey, be careful. Last time one of you people cleaned in here, they screwed up my charger setup." Marissa paused, nodded respectfully, and continued working. That same night, as she emptied the trash in the marketing department, she heard 2 employees whispering. "Did you see the new janitor lady? Old as hell. Yeah, wonder if she even speaks English." The words cut, but Marissa remained calm. She took mental notes. Names, faces, patterns. Each night after her shift, Marissa would return home and document every interaction. She noted how often people ignored her, who greeted her with kindness, and who treated her like she was disposable. By Thursday night, her notebook was full. One name appeared more than any other. Mark Halston, the VP of product. He had sneered at her on day 1. On day 3, she overheard him talking to another exec about clearing out all the low-value staff, referring to janitors and security. "We're not running a shelter," he had said. "We're a tech company. We need to look the part." Marissa wrote that line down word for word. Marissa knew the week was nearly over. She had more than enough evidence. But something told her to stay one more night. That night, in the executive lounge, she walked in to clean and overheard Mark again. This time, he was joking with 2 other managers. "That old cleaner lady smells like mothballs and regret. Probably can't tell the difference between Lysol and lemonade." Laughter. "Bet the new CEO doesn't even notice. She's too busy pretending to be Oprah." More laughter. Monday morning dawned bright over the glass tower of Oratech Solutions. It was a day like any other, except for the fact that a storm was quietly building inside the walls of the company. Alana James sat in her sleek corner office, tapping her fingers against her desk. Her heart beat rapidly. She had barely slept the night before. Today was the company's quarterly culture and inclusion town hall, an event that, until now, had always felt like a PR checkbox. But today would be different. Today, everything would change. Alana entered the auditorium-style meeting room 10 minutes early. The space was filled with rows of ergonomic chairs, a mounted projection screen, and complimentary lattes from the in-house barista. Employees filtered in, chatting casually, some tapping away on their phones. Department heads sat up front. Mark Halston, VP of Product, reclined in his chair, smirking. Beside him, Amanda from Legal and Joel from Sales scrolled through Slack messages. They didn't notice the woman in the back of the room, dressed in navy blue. Standing still, watching .it was Marissa, still wearing the cleaner's uniform. By design, at exactly 10 a.m., Alana took the microphone. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice calm but steady. "Before we begin today's town hall, I'd like to talk about something we often overlook: how we treat people when no one's watching." A few people shifted uncomfortably. She continued. "Last month, I received complaints about how some of our staff treat our cleaning crew. I asked for an internal audit. I was told everything looked fine, but I needed to know for sure. So we tried something different." Alana took a deep breath. "I invited someone to go undercover. Someone you've all seen, but maybe never really noticed." She gestured toward the back. "Please welcome Marie." Marissa stepped forward, at first, murmurs. Then confusion. And then gasps. Mark sat up straight, his jaw slightly open. Amanda narrowed her eyes. Joel looked like someone had slapped him. Marissa stood tall at the front, still in her janitor's uniform, still holding the composure of a former teacher who had handled classrooms full of rowdy children. But her voice was calm. "Precise. My name is Marissa James. I'm a retired educator. And for the past week, I worked here under the name Marie Taylor as a night shift cleaner. I wasn't invisible, but I was treated like I was." Marissa opened a folder. It contained handwritten notes, verbatim quotes. "Let me read you a few things I heard while cleaning this building." She began to read aloud. "Don't touch my desk, old woman. You people always mess up my cables. That new janitor lady probably doesn't even speak English. That old cleaner smells like mothballs and regret. The new CEO's just playing Oprah. She's probably too busy pretending to care." There was a deafening silence. Alana looked around the room. "If you recognize these words, or the voices that said them, consider this your reckoning." Alana stepped back to the mic. "Some of you may feel shocked, embarrassed, or defensive. Good. That means you're human." She continued. "But here's the truth. What we tolerate defines us. If we allow disrespect to fester in the shadows, we become complicit." Then she announced what many feared. Effective immediately, 3 employees have been placed on administrative leave pending termination. Others will undergo mandatory ethics retraining. And a third-party culture audit begins this afternoon. Murmurs filled the room. Alana wasn't done. This wasn't just a stunt. This was a test of our values. And we failed. But we can rebuild. She turned to her mother. And we start by listening to people like her. At first, no one moved. Then someone clapped. Then another. Within seconds, the room erupted in applause. Marissa bowed her head slightly, then turned and walked back toward the exit, her uniform still pressed, her pride intact. She hadn't just cleaned the offices that week. She had wiped the company's conscience clean. Monday afternoon at Oratech was anything but normal. The usual murmur of keyboards and Slack notifications had been replaced by whispers behind cubicle walls, side-eye glances, and hushed conversations in corners. The news had traveled faster than any memo. The janitor was the CEO's mother. She had gone undercover, and 3 people were already gone. People who had rolled their eyes at culture meetings were now frantically reviewing their own emails, checking chat logs, and remembering every interaction they'd had with service staff over the past 6 months. Alana didn't stop at the town hall by 2 p.m. She had summoned the department heads into a glass-walled conference room overlooking the city skyline. 12 directors sat around the oval table, and none of them looked comfortable. "Let's talk," Alana began. Her tone was calm but piercing. "I want to know why none of you reported what my mother found. Why no one saw it? Or worse, why no one wanted to see it?" Some looked down. Others shifted uncomfortably. Finally, the director of people operations, Nadia, spoke up. I think people assumed it wasn't serious. That cleaners would complain about the occasional rude comment, but nothing systemic." Alana's gaze hardened. "Let me be clear. One rude comment is enough to destroy the soul of a company. We built this place for dignity, for all." That afternoon, emails flew like wildfire. The cleaning staff were invited to share anonymous feedback directly to the CEO's office. Department leads were instructed to meet with their entire teams by end of week To reinforce new anti-harassment policies, HR created a special task force, Dignity First, composed of non-management staff from every department. Anonymous drop boxes were set up on every floor. Meanwhile, Marissa quietly stepped away from the spotlight. She returned the uniform, handed in her ID, and left the building with a calm sense of completion. But she didn't go home. That evening, Marissa and Alana sat across from each other in the family kitchen, sipping chamomile tea. "You really shook them up," Alana said with a faint smile. "I didn't want to cause drama," Marissa replied. "I just wanted the truth." "You got it," Alana nodded. "Now I need to make sure it doesn't fade once the headlines disappear." Marissa leaned forward. "Don't stop at reaction. Build a system that prevents it next time. Hire differently. Promote differently. Watch the small things, like who people greet when they walk into a room." Alana nodded slowly. "We're going to build something better." In the days that followed, stories began to surface. An engineer emailed anonymously. "I once saw Mark shout at a janitor for using the wrong hallway. I didn't speak up. I regret it now." Another employee wrote, "Marie always smiled when I passed her in the hallway. I never once asked her name. That won't happen again." One receptionist confessed, "She reminded me of my own mom. And I just sat there while others laughed behind her back." By the end of the week, Alana received over 90 letters. She read each one. Not everyone waited to be fired. One middle manager quit quietly on Tuesday morning. Another sent an apology letter and stepped down voluntarily. A senior tech lead, who wasn't even mentioned in Marissa's notes, emailed, "I'm leaving not because I was caught, but because I was complicit. I stayed silent. That makes me guilty too." It wasn't just a culture reset. That IT was a reckoning. They thought it was over, but the real work was just beginning. Weeks passed since the Undercover janitor revelation shook Oratech to its core. But unlike many corporate crises that vanished after the press died down, this one sparked something deeper, something lasting. Alana James had made a decision. She wasn't going to fix the problem quietly. She was going to reinvent the foundation. And she was going to start from the ground up. Alana stood before her leadership team and made an announcement that dropped jaws. "We're eliminating titles on all internal documentation for the next 30 days, she said. Silence. No VP signatures. No hierarchical badges on Slack. For 1 month, you will all sign your names, just your names. Because respect doesn't come from a title." One senior executive looked confused. Another looked nervous, but Alana wasn't finished. "We're also implementing a mandatory rotation. All managers must shadow janitorial, cafeteria, or front desk staff for a minimum of 2 full workdays this quarter." A hand shot up. "Even senior leadership?" "Especially senior leadership." Alana replied, "By special request, Marie, was invited back for a staff talk." But this time, not in uniform. She walked onto the stage in a soft lavender dress, modest heels, and a calm expression that commanded the room more than any podium. And when she spoke, people listened. "When I mopped these floors, I wasn't looking to get anyone fired. I was looking to see who saw me. Most of you didn't." She paused. "But you have a second chance. We all do." The room fell silent. Some employees cried. Some just stared at their hands. But no one laughed. The company began rewriting its entire onboarding process. New hires were now required to attend a session called The Invisible Impact, led by support staff, cleaners, security, admin assistants, who shared their stories and their truths. Alana introduced reverse mentoring, where high-level execs were paired with lower-tier employees to receive feedback from the bottom up. The changes weren't performative. They were personal. News of what Oratech had done spread fast. Forbes called it the most honest culture reset in Silicon Valley history. CNN Business interviewed Alana and Marissa together. But perhaps the most touching moment came during a video message from a rival CEO who said, "We always saw Alana James as fierce. Now we see her as fearless." One morning, Alana received a small envelope on her desk. Inside was a folded napkin and a handwritten note. "Dear Alana, I never spoke to Marie, but I watched how she moved. With grace, even when no one thanked her. That I'm ashamed I was silent. But I'm awake now. Thank you for forcing our eyes opened. Just another engineer." Alana kept that note in her planner for years. Months had passed since Marissa James walked the halls of Oratech with a mop in her hands and truth in her heart. But the wave she created hadn't settled. In fact, They'd spread to BY now. Oratech had transformed. Support staff were no longer invisible. They were empowered. The cafeteria had new tables, round ones, where execs often chose to eat. Cleaning staff had new break rooms with massage chairs and full-stocked fridges. Security guards wore updated uniforms with embroidered nameplates and were addressed by name. Always. The company introduced People Fridays, a new initiative where every employee, regardless of title, spent one Friday a month in a non-core function. Developers served lunch. Executives delivered packages. Product managers took help desk calls. Respect wasn't an initiative anymore. IT was embedded into the culture. Though she had returned to her quiet life, Marissa's presence lingered. Her photo hung in the main lobby, under a small plaque. Marie Taylor, the woman who reminded us all to look closer. Occasionally, she visited to speak to interns or lead small lunch circles. She called them kitchen table talks. No stage, no slides, just wisdom and candor. People listened to her more than any keynote speaker. Why? Because she wasn't pretending to be anything. She was real. That Oratech's story was picked up by several major outlets. A documentary filmmaker featured the company in a short film called Invisible No More. Other companies took notice. Some copied the People Fridays model. Others invited janitorial staff to board meetings, for real, not for optics. But most importantly, employees in other firms began speaking up. One email from a receptionist in another tech firm read, "Your story made me brave enough to report harassment I'd been facing for months. Thank you, Oratech. Thank you, Marie." 1 year after the Undercover operation, Alana stood on stage at a national leadership summit. Hundreds of CEOs sat before her. She didn't begin with a quote from a famous innovator. She began with her mom's words. "If they treat you poorly when they think you're nobody, they're not worth standing beside when you become somebody." She paused. "I became a better CEO not because I built a billion-dollar company, but because I listened to a woman with no title who walked quietly through my halls and noticed everything." The audience rose to their feet. One evening, Marissa sat on her porch sipping sweet tea, watching the sunset. A young woman approached, an Oratech intern named Julia. She handed Marissa a small letter and said, "I wrote this after your talk last week." Marissa opened it. "Dear Mrs. James, I used to think power came from being loud, from having a title, but you showed me that true power is quiet. It listens. It lifts. I hope one day I'll lead like you. Thank you for seeing us." Julia, Marissa smiled, folded the letter, and placed it next to her teacup. Another seed planted, another heart changed.